Max, you and I get to travel to a lot of rural communities, small town America, and there's so many fascinating stories out there.
There really are, and some of those are stories of survival and recovery from disaster. That was the case for the town of Maquoketa, Iowa. They are still picking up the pieces of that town in eastern Iowa, as our reporter friend Terry Gillespie tells us this week.
As we travel the country looking for interesting stories about small towns, we find ourselves this week in Maquoketa, Iowa, a town that just 1 year ago suffered a devastating fire, a tragedy that really brought this community together.
Well, January 18th, 2008, will at 2:10, I believe, in the morning, will go down in history in Maquoketa.
It was the coldest day in January. It was like 14 below zero. There was a terrible wind chill. It was just a horrible, horrible time to be fighting a fire.
I acknowledged the call when it came in from the dispatch from the 911 center. I acknowledged the call from my home, and when we responded and came around the corner, I was in the passenger seat of one of the trucks, and we turned south onto Main Street where the fire was, and the flames that were present at the time were just unbelievable, and I knew it was going to be a long night.
It's something that I hope no other community has to go through again. It was devastating in that it took a half a block of our community, our downtown, and I guess nobody really realized how long it would take to get it all straightened up and cleaned up, and that's been the frustrating part of this whole thing, is that it's taken a long time to get the downtown and the fire debris out of the way.
There's no place that I would rather be than in a small community when a tragedy happens. We had food coming from people, we had clothing, dry socks, dry shirts, dryers. Appliance store came down and hooked up a generator and hooked up a dryer so that clothes could be dried for the people that were here. So the community came together and helped. I mean, we may fight and we may bicker and we may, squabble back and forth, but when the time comes for all hands on deck, they show.
We had it under control probably within about 18 hours, I would say. There were some of us that spent over 40 hours on the call with minimal breaks. The community was wonderful, though, and came out and brought food and coffee and warm clothes. So you can't thank the people enough for those kind of gestures.
The fire is not the first time the residents of Maquoketa have had to rally together to keep this small town alive.
Maquoketa at one time, on a Saturday night, they said every Saturday night was like fair time. Everybody went to town on Saturday night, got their groceries for the week ahead, saw a movie, and just had a good time visiting with friends and relatives they hadn't seen for a week or two. And so it was a festive thing on Saturday night to do your shopping, and that's gone. That was the thing I think that most people miss and that I remember in the early days that I came.
Well, we're like a lot of Midwestern towns. We came in '65, and Clinton Engines went bankrupt shortly after that, which caused considerable change in the economic prospects and the amount of money that was here. So the community rallied. We had lots of people moved away. The sales force, the engineers, the white-collar workers, all moved to other places. And so we started making some pretty good progress when the farm recession came along in the early 1980s. And then, since then, I think we've done very well. We've had a lot of public-private partnerships and have rebuilt a lot or built new infrastructure, which makes our community, I think, a great place to live.
We have a new YMCA and swimming pool, which everybody is proud of, and we have a new Fine Arts Center, 800-seat theater, which has put on a lot of productions that we never would have had in Maquoketa before.
We call us the little tiny North Branson. And because you have the theater now, you can start bringing these in. Without this, you couldn't bring them in. We've had Vienna Boys Choir simply because they were on tour and we were in line. We've had several big bands in here, Glenn Miller, a lot of plays, every kind of a classical musical that's you can think of, even like Wizard of Oz, like that, local talent.
Agriculture is also an important part of life in Maquoketa.
Back in 1958, there were probably twice as many farms as there are now, and just like throughout the state of Iowa, farmers have gotten bigger. They've expanded in order to stay competitive. Jackson County is a very picturesque county and a very rolling hills county, and therefore we don't have as good of land for certain crops as others. We have a lot of forestry area, and we're big for cows. We've been a cow county, a top cow county in Iowa for a long time, and have that distinction.
Residents have had the most fun with the name Maquoketa. The local postman keeps track of all the different spellings, and citizens have heard at least a dozen different pronunciations.
They will just butcher the name Maquoketa.
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 Maquoketa. How do you say that?
Basically, we just say put the coke in the middle and then you got it. Say it fast. Put coke in the middle and say it fast and you come out perfect. Maquoketa.
Anybody that can pronounce it from outside the area, I'm always impressed with.
They've gone through it there all right, but a lot of heart in that town in eastern Iowa. Good place to stop some weekend night at the 61 Drive-In just south of town there, Rory, and catch a movie out there at the Drive-In Theater.
You don't find many of those anymore.
No, sir.
But we'll look for you next week right here on This Week in Agribusiness.